Ruddies, Cordons, Saints, Goldfinches have started.
We've got lights. We're good. So the sale on Sunday. I've had probably about 10 or 12 tables booked so far. Plenty of volunteers, which is good. We've got Wayne Fordham coming down with some seed. If you want anything in particular, give Wayne a ring and pre-order it to make sure you receive it. Otherwise, you might miss out. I think the weather's supposed to be pretty good. I haven't really studied the weather too well, but I think it should be good. So hopefully have a good sale. If there's no parking out the front on the day, obviously there's some parking here outside or across the road. There's hundreds. So any questions about the sale or anything else that's going to occur on the day? We'll have our raffle tickets. We'll have a kids raffle. So we'll have plenty of goodies on the day. Barbecue. Probably looking for some volunteers for the barbecue, actually. Our main man, the barbecue guy, is not here tonight, Jerry. So but we'll sort that out.
Yeah, Jerry will be doing the barbecue, but for quite a few years now, his kids have been coming along, but they've reached that age where the interest isn't there anymore. So it'd be great if you could get a couple of volunteers help Jerry out on the barbecue.
Did you read the for sale yet? All right, just on the for sale and wanted, tricolour parrot finches, 1 pair, Doug. Wanted, red cap robin hen, Adam. Double bar, Ron Hunt. Magpie startup pack, Ross. Zebra. Pure black-headed normal Gouldians, no splits, Brian. Red-faced parrot finches and sea green parrot finches. This is in the for sale. See Doug. And that's it.
All right, thanks, Jason. If that's about it, we might break for a coffee and then we'll come back 20 minutes or so and have Tony do his presentation. Hello there, folks. We might ask everyone to take a seat so we can listen to our guest speaker for tonight. Okay, folks, now for the important part of the evening. As you know, our guest speaker tonight is Tony Ford. Thank you. Many of you know Tony, one of the driving forces behind the Orange Bird Sale. I'm sure just about everyone in this room has been to the very successful Orange Bird Sale, and many of us have had the pleasure of visiting Tony's collection and had the good fortune of sitting on that couch, having a few beers and watching his birds. So yeah, it's a great pleasure to have Tony join us tonight, and I'll hand over for him to do his talk.
So, thanks for the invite down here. It's nice to get back into it. I haven't been travelling a great deal because of COVID and different things. It's just nice to get out and meet a few people and see a few new faces that I got to admit, it's probably 3 or 4 years since I've been to a sale other than ours this year. And it's just nice to get back in and say good day and see how everyone's going. Just a presentation tonight on how I set up, how I manage my birds, what I feed them, what I bred. There's a bit involved. As you all know, when you're setting your aviaries up, it's not just a matter of pouring a slab and putting the cage on top. There's a lot of factors that come into it. If I get my batteries going. No. I changed them there a minute ago. Apologise for this. You got any of them AAA batteries, Benny? Yep. They the little ones? Oh, no. Get the right button for those. A lot of people ask me how I got hobby. My family, when they were growing up and when I was playing football, it was just full on all the time. And some days you come home after chasing the kids around, you need something to do at night. My youngest fella was mad into water skiing, motorbikes. I don't know how many times we had him up in hospital, broken arms, legs, different sorts of things as kids do. My eldest bloke, he was one of Australia's junior bull riding champions, represented Australia over America when he was 19. He's had 2 or 3 sits over there. The only thing he's had is a dislocated shoulder. But he's been knocked out a few times and swung around the balls. And my father, Pat, British Empire. Right. British Empire Commonwealth champion as a boxer. One thing I never took up I copped enough irons at school, so I wasn't going to go on with it later on in life. And I played rugby league. I reckon at the time, the greatest game of all. Things have changed now, different rules and laws, and it can be very frustrating to watch. And after the end of the day, I needed something where I could just unwind, and I decided to build some aviaries and just relax again. It had been probably 15 years since I'd had birds. I'd moved in town. I had too many aviaries in there. Veronica said, the wife at the time, how about we move out of town and you can set up there. So as you all know, as I mentioned earlier, the position of your aviaries is a very important thing. You've got to take your weather into consideration, your storms, the rains, when it rains, where it runs, your storm water, you've got to run power to it. All those things that some people neglect, and it comes back to bite them later on. We all talk about mouse-proof in our aviaries. I hired a ditch switcher for a couple of days. I dug me footing 600 mil down. I filled them all up with concrete, hoping and thinking that mice and rats wouldn't dig underneath it. Run me power. I worked out after I'd had this done, or when I was digging the footings there, where the water run before I put me sumps in. When we worked that out, I just dug it, as you can see there, or across the middle there. That's the lowest point. So I dug a trench straight through there and put sumps and run me water out into the garden on the other side. Boxed them up, poured them. In the background there, far right-hand side of the back, my bird room's on the right, and that is a sheltered area at the back. It's 7 by 3, where the birds can fly in and get out of the cold, because it gets a bit cool in winter in Orange at times. That's all stripped and ready to go. I had a little bobcat where on this side of the wall here, I was able to go in and out and fill the cage up with the dirt because it needed a bit of fill in there. This is the second back of aviaries here on the left-hand side. The original one I just showed on the far side down there. But this gives you a bit of an idea with the timber framing that I did. Being in the building game for about 15 years, I found timber a lot easier to use than steel, saying that steel is an ideal thing to use when you're feeding white ants. I haven't got a picture of this here, but this breeding area at the back here, that was my kitchen area on the left-hand side. It was destroyed by white ants, all from that tree in the background that you can see there. I thought it was the ones that I bought in, but no, the guy said that they've come from underground, they smell fresh timber, and it wouldn't have been 2 or 3 years and they ate the lot. I had to pull it all down and redo it. I put steel on the outside for the simple reason that it's out in the weather, exposed, even though there's a roof on it. There's a lot of condensation and that builds up in those sort of areas and more durable. I started putting the laser light on top. Opal, I think it was, bronze. And after I did that, that's it, finished there, it just didn't seem right. So I changed every second sheet. Can you see the difference? Yeah, it was just too dark, and especially for finches, they like it a bit lighter, I find. I went with the second sheet and it just opened up the aviaries to the extent that it was incredible, made so much of a difference. Whereas in the big aviary, it's just all wire on top. It's 17 metres long, 7 metres across, and there's 3 metres undercover on the right-hand side there. But this is the sort of aviary that I've always dreamt about, always wanted to do. Where the aviary is now, there was a house there when I first bought the block of land. So I knocked it down, or half of it had fallen in. So I cleaned it up when I was digging the footings to my house and proceeded to build this aviary. Oh, it'll be 10 years later, I finally got around to doing it. Having a concrete business in town, I was flat out all the time and young family growing up. But I knew the time was coming where I needed something to unwind. And this was always on the cards. When I feed me birds, as we all know, mice are a problem, and seed and scraps on the floor attract mice. So I always feed my birds in these steel containers. The only mistake I made with these, they're only 2 inches high instead of 4. As you know, with finches and parrots, whatever they want to eat, it's always on the bottom. They'll kick everything out to get to the bit of seed that they want. That's the seeds that I feed. I used to feed individual seeds. I still maintain you save a lot of seed doing that, but it's very time consuming when you got, I think I had 8, 10, 12 aviaries and carrying 10 or 12 buckets of different seed back and forth. So I've gone back to mixing them up and the blend there now. White ants is a big thing. When I was breeding a lot of petilias, I spoke to Joe earlier on. The harder birds are bloods, blue caps, petilias. I bred a couple of them in town, but I lost a lot of them. I wouldn't, well, I don't know about down here, but I couldn't breed them without white ants, but I had trouble keeping birds alive during our winters. That was the thing. So I've gradually weaned myself off them and just stuck to the birds that are more acclimatized to our country up there and the temperatures that we have. I had a few lorikeets at one stage. They didn't last long. Even a big aviary in there, they still make a mess. They squirt everywhere and the lounge that you'll see later on, even though they're covered in plastic, somehow they got through it, and if they're not chewing it, they're squirting on it. In a big aviary like that, the only way you catch finches is to set a trap with their feet in it. I suppose you all know your birds feed at a certain time. Mine do around 4 o'clock every afternoon. You can take your green feeds out there or your live food, and they just come to you. So when it's catching time, I'll cover all that seed up. I'll leave that trap open like that, but I'll cover all the seed that's underneath them and just put a bowl that you can see in there, and within 10 minutes the birds are in there. But as usual, the one you want to catch is the last one that'll go in. They're buggers, I think. They just know. They're there. That's how I've got it set up there now. The seed's covered, little tray in there, and once the birds go in there, an old-fashioned way, sitting in the room behind me with a bit of fishing line and the string there. When they go in, shut the line, away they go. I've since had a cage made up where flick a button, remote control on your door, the door locks, but I reckon if it hit one of the birds, it'd break his neck. So I'm sticking to the old fishing line. Green food. As well as live food, green food is one of the most important things for birds. There's nothing worse than a finch or any sort of bird sitting on the floor looking for something to eat. He needs nourishment. And for those of you that have been out home, I'm pretty fortunate. I've got 50 acres around me, and I throw all my waste seed over the fence. And when there wasn't cattle there or sheep, this was the crop I got. I'd rotate it a bit, throw my seed out there, water it, and then when the seed's going like this, just go out there with a pair of scissors and a bucket and put her in the aviary. And it was terrific. And then they started leasing it out and the cattle got into it, and they had the fattest cattle ever. I think it's barnyard grass, millet, white French. In the aviary, when I first built the aviary. Now, you hear about farmers saying that when they plant a crop, it takes out of the soil whatever it does. It's true. When I had canola, this just grew. Some of the seed I threw on the floor. Never grew nothing else grew bar grass, and it's only happened the last 3 years, I reckon. For 10, 12 years, it'll be longer. That's 2004, I think I built the aviary, so 18 years. Hardly anything grow after canola. I don't know what you got to put on the floor to do what you do. Bit of red millet. Oh, it might be Jap, is it? Jap. Siskins love it. Parrotfinches, when I had them, I don't know how you guys are that have blue-faced parrotfinches. I had them with cordons, and I seen this bird to the extent chase a cock cordon where he's just flying along and just dropped out of the ground, dead. So caught the parrotfinch out and no more parrotfinches. Cucumbers, grew a few cucumbers. They're one thing that birds just live on. They love it. I don't know if you can give them too much. Word is a bit of lettuce every now and again, and I do feed a bit of lettuce. Spinach is a great thing. I grew that in the aviaries. But when you plant, you've got to be very careful that it won't last long unless you cover it. They will just destroy it, especially if you've got neophemas. They sit on it. So cover it up before you get it, when you get it established, and then you can take her off. The seed that I collect out of their trays every couple of weeks, I put it in a bin and I winnow it, and it's the stuff I soak. And it's surprising how much they do throw out. It's incredible. So I soak it in Birkeness 24 hours, and then I'll strain it and just leave it in a container. Over the next couple of days, it'll start to germinate and shoot like that. And birds love it. We did a DVD on live food at one of the guys in the bird club with me, Ray Smith. He said one day, how about we do a DVD on this live food stuff? And there was a time, I don't know, it might be 15 years ago now, on breeding maggots and getting white ants and meat and mealworms. And it was a terrific experience to go and do that. I don't know if any of you have seen the DVD. At the end, when I'm out getting white ants, I'm telling everyone you've got to be very careful working through the bush. There's snakes and lizards and things about, and I'm Larry Butler. I'm walking up, and here's this brown snake in front of me. He's popped up and his tongue's hanging out looking at me, and someone said, how'd you get that close to him? So our neighbour ran over him a couple of days ago. I've just got him propped up with a stick. And he looked the part, but maggots are the only things I feed now. A couple of mealworms, when they breed, they are hard and slow, but maggots, the only live food that I've got now. They're so easy. And just continuous supply. Whereas these mealworms at home, unless you've got a heated room, and they are in a heated box, they still take 4 or 5 months to do. I don't know how you guys, does any of you breed mealworms here? How long do they take you to? Eh? Oh, are you? Well, I've just taken, but the worm is just turning into the pupae now. I'm just starting to separate them. By the time they turn into a beetle, then the beetles lay the eggs. It might be next year I might get some. Oh, they're terrible. You've set all your aviaries up and you want to fill them up with birds. It's an addiction when you breed birds. You want everything, first off. You're excited, you go to sales, you haven't got enough carry cages. You're all guilty, I know that. But you've got to be very careful what you do, what you buy, and do a bit of research on the birds before you buy them. As I said earlier on, with the blue caps, the bloods, the petilias, beautiful looking birds. Love to have them at home, but wasted a lot of money. Aviaries like this, where they've got a bit of room. Red siskins did the best in there. They're incredible. I've never bred, I was talking to Joe earlier on, he told me he bred a few this year, the last couple of years. I've never bred a bird as a single pair. But in here with 2 cockbirds and 5 hens, oh, I might breed 20 a year. I was embarrassed not when Jay said he bred 90. Yeah, not bad going. Weavers do very well. Had to go up the pintail whiters. I got them off a bloke by the name of Glenn Bowden up in Tamworth. He rang me up one day and he wanted some yellow siskins. He said, you got any? I said, yeah, I have. I've had a pretty good season with them. He said, I'll swap your pair of pintails for the few pair, and I had, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 pair of yellow siskins. So I brought them home. I put them in that big aviary, and you got to time your run with the St. Helenas. I think I had about 20 pair of St. Helenas. End of the breeding season, I bred 7 pintails, 4 survived, 1 disappeared. I don't know. I had some visitors around at my house, and pintails and some weavers went missing. I'm not saying, and I'm sure that they didn't knock them off, but whether or not they left the door open or something having a look, I don't know. They disappeared. But they ended up at David Holmes's place. He rang me up and said he wanted some, so they went down there. I reckon I bred 100 St. Helenas out of 7 pintails. And then to get rid of 100 St. Helenas, you nearly got 10 pair at a time. That's the special. But they are a magnificent bird. I don't know if any of you have seen them in their mating display. The hen will be on the ground and he'll just hover over her, up and down and just hovering till she's ready to mate, and away they'll go. But aggressive. If you throw your green feed out on the ground, and all finches like to eat their tucker on the ground, this fella would just dive bomb everything. He's relentless. So you had to put 2 or 3 patches of feed out and hope that he left some of them alone. I bought some
Grenadier weavers off a bloke by the name of Johnny Lane. One of these turned out yellow. I reckon I bred 40 over a 5 or 6 year period. Not one other turned out yellow, and he was the only one and he's gone. As I say, red siskins, they're a terrific bird in there. They've started to nest at the moment, and they're probably the only bird at the moment that are nesting in the aviary. I've got one young scarlet. Everything's slow in Orange. The temperature there, so we had snow last week, and you set your birds up a month, 6 weeks ago, thinking we're starting to get a bit of warm weather, but it just turns and everything stops. And if they have nested, you lose them. Dimes are a popular bird and a nice bird in the aviary. I've always enjoyed them. Eh? They breed fairly easily in town. Around Christmas time, they're in the backyard. They come around. Pictorellas are a bird that, to be honest, I've only had probably 1 or 2 really good seasons. In the big aviary where these fellas are now, I reckon 1 year I bred 20, and I reckon I went 10 years without breeding a bird after that. But like most of us, we've fallen into the trap. Beautiful breeding pair of birds, will get rid of the young. As soon as you do that, lose one of the breeding pairs. And it's hard to, and you should, and I'm sure you all do, and we're all guilty of just buying a bird and putting it in there. When you buy birds, buy young ones, let them mate themselves. If you can get 2 or 3 pair of the same sort, put a different ring on them, put them in a cage and just see who sticks with who. Cordons do very well in Orange. One bird that never had any problem. You don't need a great deal of live food. Tricolour parrotfinches, the same thing. They're in the big aviary there now, and they're magnificent. I never have any problems with them. They look after themselves, stay out of the road of everyone. I was talking to Sam earlier on about stars. He mentioned in his aviary that he'd bred a few. This time last year, it might have been May, Andy and Deb had rung up and I had every bird caught up in my aviaries, 200 or 300. Rang me up, he said, COVID's hit, I won't be up there for a couple of months. Must have been about June. July coming, I thought, oh, they're starting to look to breed. So I put 3 pair of stars in the big aviary. I put 3 pair of what I had in the big aviary, and Andy and Deb come up and got a few 6 or 8 months, oh, not so long ago, was it? Yeah. Sam was saying, I reckon I had 20. We were sitting there yesterday just watching, and there'd be 20 young stars in there from last year that I didn't realise that I had. The prolific breeders they are. I used to have neophemas in all my aviaries. I've got our sale this year. Now, I suppose you guys, do you have birds get out in here when you do sale? I reckon we had 20 this year. From big, no, not a macaw, but lorikeets and rosellas. And there was a hen blue scarlet. And I can't have one hen blue scarlet in an aviary. So I got a cockbird, and they're, as far as I know, the only ones that have got young. He's just a normal fella there. But I always had neophemas in the cages. I never had any dramas with them. The only problem was when they left the nest, I found they were very flighty. So I'd always keep an eye on them, and I used to take the young out about a week before they flew, just let them run around on the floor. Oh, it must be the next one. Just to get used to the outside environment, put them back in the nest. They come out, and they seem to be a fair bit quiet, but I wouldn't say totally quiet. Until one year, I'd done the same thing, and she never went back and fed them, and that was it. So, gone. This bank of aviaries, as I said, the far bank of aviaries was just a bit of everything. I built this to specialise in a few things when I started getting the Petillias and the Bloods and the Blue Caps. And they're great aviaries. They're lined at the back. They're 8 metres long, 2 metres wide, 3 metres high. They're insulated in the walls, gyp-rocked. Doors that you can close, little peepholes where they can fly in and out. But bred a couple, then our winters had hit, and that'd be it. So I started to get selective then now as to what I put in there. Masts have always done very well, the white-eared masts. And like a lot of birds, seasons differ. Some years you'll have a great season with a bird, and the next year you won't. So don't be too frustrated if they don't breed next year. Conditions, only the bird knows why. When the yellow painters first come out, I had a crack at them, and the fawns, and there's some nice birds with the coloured in the painters. Goulins, we spoke about Goulins earlier on. Years ago, you could breed them but never keep them alive. Now you can't stop them from breeding, 12 months of the year nearly. They're incredible. And they are a terrific bird. How's right, you never have any dramas with them. There's the Bloods we spoke about. Terrific birds. I never had a drama with them other than keeping them alive. And nothing major. Yeah, you just wasted a couple $100 on a pair of birds and bang. You've done all the hard work. You've set your aviaries up. You've fed them right. You hope to start getting the results. Here's the Scarlets I was talking about. Every second day or something like that, I get them out and start putting them out just on top of the seed to get used to the daylight, see what it's like outside. So hopefully when they came out, they'd be good as gold. And some were, some, well, Mum didn't go back and feed the last lot. So the reason I got into birds out home, I had a long aviary, was 6 metres long, 2 metres wide and 2 metres high. And I moved it from in town out home. I started to get into the Goulins. I went away on holidays and I was doing fairly well. I reckon I was paying, I think at the time, about $500 a pair for them and going okay. I had probably 20 or 30 young on the perch and went away on holidays. I come back and Bill, my brother, was looking after the birds. I said, Bill, you didn't let any birds out, did you? He said, no. He said, you haven't got many. I said, well, I did have. Anyway, straight away I thought I got a rat. And who was it we're talking earlier? What's those long nose things? Yeah, that's it. I thought, so I started pulling the gyprock off and he took off. I went up and he went out and all in the gyprock, the insul in through the wall, he had quail and finches, all just ready for winter. Just had them stuck in there and I just lost interest in the birds. I saw what I had in there and I was too lazy to jackhammer the concrete, the aviary up. It was concreted in and I left it there for a couple of years and I caught a canary and you can't have one canary. So I put it in a bloody cage and that made me then, I thought, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. I jackhammered it up and I built that big aviary and that's what kicked me on. Yeah. Oh, come on. Right, you've got the young diamonds that say they breed fairly well. I've never had a drama for them. They're a beautiful bird to have in there. Talking about the Goulins. I was talking about the Goulins. I put 2 pair in an aviary just to see how they went, whether they fought or what. Put them in same time. They had 6 young each come out the same day. There was 12 young. There's 10 on the perch there. But they had, 6 exactly the same day. So whether they watch each other, I don't know, but that was the end result. They done very well. And as I say, some years it's easy to breed them. Keep them alive a few years ago was the hard part. Sometimes you've got to improvise. On the bottom there's a little painted nest. He was getting washed out, so I had an old umbrella at home. I stuck it up. Covered the aviary, covered the nest, no dramas at all. There he is there, you can just see it under there. That's him stuck his head out. And that's a Jackarini's nest, same thing. I put the umbrella over it. It was just out in the open, was just about to get washed out. So I thought, oh, I could try anyway. And yeah, no problems at all. You got to enjoy your hobby. As I said earlier on, it's an addiction. It's too easy to get carried away. There's nothing worse than walking down to your aviaries every day and think, shit, I've got 20 aviaries I've got to feed and water. Build what you can handle, what you can enjoy. I've got to admit, when I walk down to my aviaries now, and I've cut back a lot on birds, the smile on my face when I walk in that aviary and sit down and like all of us, we talk to our birds and we keep an eye on everything. We know what's going on. There's a little rabbit in there. The grandkids ain't it, but he comes up and gets a pat and it's nice to just feel wanted. To have an aviary like this, I'm very fortunate. It's on a lot of people's wish list. Fortunate enough in the building game, I could do it myself and poked along. I never ever added up. I didn't want to add up what it cost me. I think it had frightened me. And so that was the other bank of Averys, so I could specialise in a few things. And when I built them, I had plans, identical Averys there, north-south, east-west, I was going to do the other ones. And they're facing the wrong way. They get a bit of the weather, but for the visual aspect of the Averys, when you drive in the driveway, you're not looking at the back of an Avery. You've got to make it presentable that it looks okay. But I sit there just and enjoy. That's them finished. It's a pleasure to keep an eye on your birds. The only way to see how your birds are going. Oh, how do I go back? Huh? Adiel. Well, there was one of that bird. How do I go back here, Sam? Oh, hang on. Yeah, error. That's the one. Huh? I was cleaning the top of the aviary, that long bank of aviaries, and this alsynite. When I first got the weavers, they built out in the open, rain and washed out. So I get up on the roof and I'll put this laser light across there and I held it down. A couple of days later, they'd build over here. So I moved the laser light over there and realised then that rain stimulates them. They build out in the rain, but they build a nest that is waterproof. It's incredible. So it came down and the weavers went to nest and not a drama. That was just one thing that I learnt when probably never asked enough questions when I first got it. So another view of the aviary. It's just nice when it's planted out like that. Enjoy your birds. The best way to see what's going on is to sit down and watch. The visual aspect is to find out if any birds are crook. Because you'll only ever notice a crook bird when he's got his head under his wing, and it's usually too late then. So just have a watch. That was when I just finished building the aviaries. I sit back, I think I might have had a beer in me, hand, something different. And it's terrific. Share your knowledge. I enjoy coming here and have a yarn and telling you how I do it. I enjoy people coming around. I've got bus groups come up, and it's nice to be able to take people around, to show them how you do it, ask them how they do it. Don't be frightened to share your knowledge. Don't keep it a secret. Do any of you guys know any of them? Do you know where they're from? I'm not sure where they are. And I spoke about earlier on some of the conditions we have in Orange. Last year and 2 or 3 years ago, this is the snow we had. I got CC'd in a Facebook 6 months ago. Jeff Wheeler from Dubbo. Someone was complaining or disagreed about putting heaters in aviaries. And they said, ask Tony Ford. And that big bank of aviaries, and in there as well, I've got the heater lamps that hang down, what you put in your tastics in your bathrooms. They hang about 2 foot off the ground. I put a tray and a rag underneath. And it's surprising how many birds sit under that of a night time when the temperature's like this. You've gone all of the trouble of setting everything up. Why let 1 week of cold weather ruin everything that you've just set yourself up for? If you can prevent or save some of the young ones, this was incredible. That aviary, in the big aviary, there was 4 inches of snow on top of that, but it was so peaceful and calm inside. It wasn't cold, the birds were still flying around, but I'd hate it if the snow fell on them, it would have killed them. There's another shot of it. It was probably one of the best snowfalls we've had for a long while. That's in the back, just looking down at the lot. So that's how I do it in Orange. It has its challenges, but as you all know, it's very rewarding, and it's great to have a hobby like this. And all of the rough stuff that I had growing up with the kids and myself and Dad fighting, we all had, I don't know, sporting activities. We needed something to calm down, and I back into birds, and I've never regretted it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Tony, for a very informative talk. I'm sure we can all take something away from it. Before we move on, any questions for Tony at all?
Yeah, what's the mesh around your aviaries? What did you use for wire? Okay. And is that what all the snow was caught on, was it? Okay. And what about insulation of any bird rooms or any sheltered areas? Okay. Okay. And are those heater lamps come on automatically or? Okay.
Some birds will sit under it, some birds won't. But you can, especially parrot pitches, middle of winter, you can go and hose out the water bottle. It's not going to burn. They can tolerate cold, right? The thing that I found most that affects me is breeze, draft. You've got a draft going through your aviaries. It knocks the birds. But yeah, a bit of snow like that.
A bit of snow like that, yeah, they got no dramas at all. But the inside of the place is insulated fairly well. Yeah. It's one thing you have got to do. Well, in Orange anyway. Bit different down here. I packed a jumper this morning when I left to come down here. Beautiful down here. Yeah.
Do you have any trouble with the noisy miners and the butcher birds, or if you have double wire on that?
I do have a problem with them. Butcher birds are terrible. We have the pied butcher bird up home, and they're a very destructive and aggressive bird, they are. Hawks, every now and again, in season when they've got young, they're always looking for something to feed their young, so they'll harass your aviaries, but I just throw a rock at them. Just a rock, only a rock. Yeah, but birds can be, at times, yeah, birds are very annoying at home, yeah. It'll be 10 or 12 years ago now, I come home one night and there was 2 owls sitting on top of that little aviary there that I showed. I haven't got it anymore. They were white. Are they barn owls? White owls? Barn owls? And they both sat there. I had the lights on in the car and I walked up and I grabbed one. And a magnificent owl. The other one took off in the tree and I looked at him and shook him. I said, if I see you back here again, you're gone. I'll let him go. But I was never up at 2 o'clock again in the morning to see if he come back.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Hey, Bob, I've got to sit over here, you too.
I actually stalk you on Facebook, Tony, and I see that you are out traveling a lot. So what's your regime when you're away for looking after your birds?
Oh, Bob, that's a good question. It's hard. I've actually, that big bank of aviaries where I showed you there, I haven't got a bird in there now. I'm in a situation at the moment where I can travel. I'm heading to Scotland next year playing golf, and I'm heading up the Gold Coast playing golf. There's a bloke in Orange that has birds, Ronnie Pearson, and he said to me about 3 or 4 months ago, if you need to go away, I'll come and look after your birds. And I said, I appreciate that. And if you go away, I'll go and do his. So yeah, he comes and does that. But up till now, it's hard to get anyone to do it. And no one does it the way you do it yourself. Little things, you'll be walking along and there might be a bit of thistle or something you see and you pick it up and you just know to throw that in the aviary. But no one else does that. They'll check the water and walk by. But I'm lucky now that he'll come out, but I don't know if he does maggots. So, yeah, maggots, yeah. I might have to break him into that. So we'll sit down and have a beer one day and see how we go. And when I have done it before, and it's terrible how much birds rule your life. I've always planned my holidays in our winter. And if I've gone overseas and fortunate enough to do a bit of traveling overseas, they haven't fed live food. Yeah, so I don't think I've been away where someone's had to do it yet. Be interested to see what happens. Yeah.
Any other questions? No.
Thank you.
Again, thank you, Tony, especially
mate.
travel all the way from Orange.
No, no problem.
And before you go, just something from the club, just say little thanks for coming on down. So really appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll see you in Orange in a few months.
So, thanks, Lon.
While we're handing things out, Deb Brinkett, come on down. A little bit late. You did a great talk last month, so got a little something for you as well. Another round of applause. All right, I think it's raffle time, so over to Joe.